Good day, good afternoon, good wherever you are. Welcome to It's All About the Grey podcast. I'm privileged and honoured to be joined by Framy Browne this morning, this afternoon. It depends when this goes live and I'll leave it to the unknown. But Framy, thanks for coming aboard on the podcast.
Hi, Paz. Thanks for having me.
You're
Very
welcome.
excited.
You're welcome. So, Framy, you probably don't need an introduction, but maybe I'll allow you to introduce yourself. I've done my own little research, but it's always probably better hearing it from you. So do you want to tell everyone who doesn't know you, and if they don't, I'm going to be surprised, but if for those that don't know you, why don't you tell us a bit about who you are and what you do?
Thanks, Paz. Well, Paz, apart from giving everybody my age, which I'm not going to do, I'm the lead partner of the family and private clients team at Lavan. I am a lawyer and I'm a mother of three. And I am a long-term partner of Ryan. And if I want to sum up myself very quickly, that's me. And I've known you for now probably a short period of time, but it seems like every time we catch up, it's always a really good catch-up. It's a bit of a weird setting today, but I always enjoy our time together. Yes.
Good, amazing, and as do I. It's only been a short period of time, but it feels like I've known you for a long time, and our circles do somehow always cross, which makes life a bit easier.
Perth's a small place.
It is. It is a small place, and as we continue to grow our networks, I think it probably gets a lot smaller, doesn't it?
It does. Hailing from Sydney, I think that the smallness of Perth, I think, was very evident to me when I first moved across. And I should have said that too. I'm originally from Sydney. I grew up in Sydney, but I've called Perth, Western Australia, my home since 2009. And talk about small places. The first time I was here, I worked for a law firm, prior to working at Lavan, and I jumped into a cab one of the first nights in the first week that I was working here, and the second night I jumped into a cab to go home again, and it was the same cab driver.
Oh, wow.
And never happened again, but gosh, what an introduction to Perth in terms of how small it can be. But yes, in terms of the same circles, you and I both know a lot of mutual people. Like I said before, I think I was waiting for Laura Faultley from Business News to jump out from somewhere because she always seems to be around when you and I get together.
She does, and Laura's a lovely lady, and a lot of respect and time for Laura. So Framy, you said you're working in the family law division and private clients at Lavan, and you've obviously transitioned from Sydney. So why don't you tell us a bit about that transition from Sydney to Perth and how the family law and private client practice came to be?
Yeah. Oh, okay, great. That's 2009. Gosh, it's been a while now. As I said, I grew up in Sydney, and I went through my own divorce. And I think at that time, I had a lot of contemplation in terms of whether or not I had, could start a new beginning. Frankly, I had 3 young kids, and my mum and dad were very integral in my life. In fact, I think they were so involved in my life that I thought that as an adult woman I needed some independence. So what do you do when you do that? You move across Australia to Western Australia. I'd never been here before, but for one visit, and I fell in love with it. So I fell in love with Perth, very thin line between courage and stupidity. I think, looking back on it now, I think it was courage moving with 3 young kids, no family here, really knew no one. And I got a job opportunity and I took it, and the rest is history. So, but I still call Perth home. I still call Sydney home when I fly back, and I call Perth home when I fly back. So it's nice to have 2 homes, actually.
Good. Yeah. Well, you get the best of both worlds because you've got the fantastic Perth beaches, and then you get the, in my opinion, some of the best venues there is in Australia, in Sydney.
I'll tell you a secret, Paz. We live in the best state in
we
Australia.
Do? There we have it.
Absolutely.
Perth is the best state.
Yeah.
I'm glad you said that. Yeah. Otherwise, it might not have made air the podcast. So, correct me if I'm wrong, though. You've transitioned into Perth with a young family.
Yeah.
And you said you'd accepted a job. However, you've either completely missed something or you haven't quite told us about the journey of where that job then led to. So why don't we dive a little bit further into the history of where you got to where you are today.
I became a partner at that previous firm, and I was with them for about 6 years. And funnily enough, Dean Healy, who's a managing partner at Lavan, who was the managing partner of Lavan back then and is now, caught up with me for a coffee. Our sons played rugby together, and he was going to pick my brain about a potential lawyer that he was considering to start up their family law practice. And during the course of the conversation, and Dean likes to tell his story, how it happened, but during the course of the conversation, my understanding is that there was a light bulb moment for Dean, and he said, "Why not Framy?" And the rest is history. And I think that was the opportunity. It was like a moth to a light bulb moment for me, because it was, again, thin line between bravery and stupidity. And I thought, God, how brave I was to just, say yes. Dean shared a vision of a top tier family law practice in a corporate firm. Lavan is the largest independent law firm in WA. We've got over 200 staff, and they hadn't had a family law practice for a number of years. And much like the other corporate law firms, they steered away from family law practices. So the deal was I would come across and start that family law practice on my own, no files, no team. What was I thinking? And now, 10 years later, I have no regrets. It's been a wild journey, and it's been a good one.
And there's a team of, what, 20, is it?
21.
Yeah, fantastic.
21, yeah.
Wow.
So, and they're a great team. But gosh, it's like 10 years is a long time to develop something, and it's really quite rewarding seeing that vision that both Dean and I shared more than 10 years ago come to fruition. We saw that there was going to be a changing of the guard in the family law space in Perth, and that opportunity just was too good to not accept at the time.
So why is it that these large commercial practices do steer away from family law? Is there a reason, or is it a myth, or?
I think they see that family law is like the poor cousin. That and criminal law.
Yeah, right.
We're not as fun as criminal lawyers, but we're almost there. But what I think one of the greatest achievements, I would think anyway, from my perspective, for me, particularly in my journey, was winning the respect of other partners in other practice areas, from our corporate team to our property team to our construction and our litigation team and reconstruction team and employment team. I mean, we've, I'd like to think that my partners respect now or have a greater appreciation and understanding of how complex family law is. We're not just dealing with mum and dad stuff and vanilla property and asset pools. We're dealing with pretty complex stuff, including big structures and also complex financial structures, and you're dealing with people's livelihoods and companies and businesses which they have invested a lot of time into. So the complexity of the work that we do is pretty serious stuff, and family law itself is pretty complex. I mean, I like to say that the family court's the most powerful court in Australia. We have the family court has the jurisdiction, has the power to bind third parties into family court proceedings, parties who aren't part of the marriage, and to make orders that affect their rights. I mean, that's pretty wow to me, and I guess in a sense, that's Lavan as a whole, and all my other partners have seen that. I think they've, had a greater understanding and appreciation of what we do.
Yeah, look, I tend to agree personally as well. There's been countless times where in some of the work that we've been involved in that the family law court trumps all. No matter how well structured asset protection, tax mitigation strategy that you put together,
I'm glad you said that, Paz,
Uh,
because
it's true.
we've been drumming it, and wherever I can raise awareness of that, I do, because then it becomes really significant in terms of when a family or particularly a family structures their wealth. It's what do they say? Prevention's better than the cure. It really ultimately turns your mind to what can be done before that all happens. And I'm a great believer. My partner's a real fan of Stoic philosophy, and from that I take, he's much more well read than I am, but from that I take, you can't control what you can't control. And I'll tell you what, in-laws you can't control. So it turns your mind, and I guess when as Australia dives into this new, I think over the next 20 years, I don't know the exact stats, but there's like an amazing amount of like $23 or $33 trillion worth of intergenerational wealth transfer.
The largest in Australia's history.
Absolutely. You're turning your mind to what can be done beforehand to avoid the wrath of the family court at some particular point in time, which could really destroy families and, really cause a lot of upheaval for businesses and family businesses and family structures. I think that it'd be silly not to be thinking.
So speaking of which, what is one of the most overlooked or probably undervalued or underestimated strategies that you could put in place in a normal family? Let's call it
now you're asking
normal.
for advice.
I know. Look, this is not legal advice. We'll put the disclaimer somewhere. In a normal proceeding of establishing a trust to hold shares, let's say it's in a family business, what is one of the most important things that's often overlooked?
Maybe if I can start from what the family court sees regularly. Okay. So, for example, I'll just start off with family loans. So when a parent loans or advances their child money for the purpose of supporting them, get ahead, those monies are then a subject of contention in a family law dispute, simply because the other spouse at the time doesn't accept that it's a loan to be paid back.
Okay.
So ultimately, there's arguments about whether that loan was a bona fide loan or not. So really, make sure you've got a loan agreement. Make sure you've got loan agreement terms in terms of interest payable and repayment terms. And if it's, against, say, for example, secured against a property, think about putting a mortgage against the property. Those are the things that I think you need to start thinking about. I think, prevention is always good to think about, but you've got to understand, well, what could possibly be the worst case scenario. That's just an example. Another example, I think, that Australians don't do as well as Americans, or I guess even in South Africa, they've got the anti-nuptial agreements that they do really quite well. Here they, prenups, which is a colloquial term for financial agreements, and that's something that turn your mind to doing that, even though it's a pretty checkered history in terms of the legislation itself. Got to be very careful to do it properly. But those type of documents shouldn't be overlooked when you're looking at structuring something to I guess avoid conflict or uncertainty down the track. I hope that was vague enough for you.
No, that was fantastic.
Going into
that's fantastic.
Specific advice.
Obviously we see a lot of it. Correct me if I'm wrong. You probably see a lot of it at that ultra wealth level from an Australian perspective. That is, a Jeff Bezos type of situation.
Gosh, that's big money.
That is big money. But
interested to see his structures.
Yeah, I would.
I think he got married recently, didn't he?
He's in the process of getting married.
Yes, that's right.
At the moment, I think it's his second marriage. But again, I agree with you. I think it's often overlooked, and I think some people are actually uncomfortable with having the conversation, and that, in my opinion, is where a lot of the struggle comes to. Is that, well, I'm uncomfortable with having that conversation. Well, imagine having it after the fact.
Absolutely. You know what I tell clients who say, well, what do I tell her, Framy, in terms of, how am I going to talk to her about it without, she's upset about it or whatever, or he's upset about it. And I always say that it's always better to make a decision when you respect and love each other, and when that relationship is one of a peaceful relationship and you're not in conflict. I mean, how much better is your understanding of each other's needs at the time when you're negotiating something that you're willing the good of the other? Whereas you want to compare that discomfort to, again, the pain, and it's not a discomfort, the pain of a family law dispute. I think people have got to weigh that up. But not everybody needs a prenup. I mean, I'm not suggesting here, and I'm not sitting on your podcast telling everybody to go get a prenup because they're very expensive to do.
If you can, just contact Framy.
Please don't download them online. Please don't download them online. But ultimately, they need to be done properly. But I'm not telling everybody that everybody needs it. But if you're in your second marriage and you've accumulated wealth and you've got adult children, to think about all children from your first marriage, to think about whatever, there are some people that might turn their minds to it a lot. They will benefit from it than some 20-year-old something that's getting married with nothing really in their names. You kind of wonder what's a prenup going to do for them.
Correct. Speaking of which, obviously there's clearly a grey art in your role when you're balancing that empathy piece and good people that are in bad times. How do you even go about that? Because it must be tough.
It is. I think that is definitely the grey art of my area of practice, because unlike my colleagues or partners who deal with companies and entities, say for example in the property team or the corporate team, deal with banks, and our reconstruction insolvency guys who deal with other accountants and other companies in distress. But we deal with people and we deal with the individual, and we act for third parties too. Don't get me wrong. The family court, has seen me act for directors of companies and banks too on some occasions. But we're dealing predominantly with people, and I think one of the things that you learn as a family lawyer is that you learn forgiveness very quickly in terms of forgiving a person for acting badly, because people act so differently under stress. You've got to remember you're acting for a good person, good people in very bad times, and sometimes in bad times you don't make the best of choices. So empathy is really important, but so is forgiveness and a greater understanding about how different people can be. Because you've got the other spouse telling you and telling the whole world how terrible they are, and vice versa sometimes, which is unfortunate, not all the time. But you've got to remember you're acting for good people in bad times. So.
And yeah, there obviously is a big challenge, and probably some of the experiences that I've had, which it's a bit difficult when it's not your own divorce.
Have you been divorced?
No, I haven't. I haven't. It's a bit difficult when it's not my divorce, but we often do say you need to try and remove the emotion from it. And I know it's tough, and imagine being in your position.
Yeah.
It must be seriously tough, because you must, and I say this lightly, but you must feel some form of emotional attachment to some of the decisions and conversations that you'd be having, right?
I think becoming emotional is very different to showing empathy. And I think a lawyer or a family lawyer becoming emotional doesn't add value to a client's dispute. No way. And in fact, unfortunately, we've come across on some occasions, not all, where it appears that a lawyer's become a bit more emotional than they should be in a matter, and it doesn't help. It really doesn't help the situation. Our clients are already emotional as it is, and we need to really take a step back and look at things, particularly when it comes to financial matters. We need to have commercial acumen. We need to be able to take a step back and try to resolve the dispute and not become emotionally entrenched. But you've got to understand too, my clients and family law clients, the breakdown of relationships has been akin to a death. Like, they go through that grieving cycle and that grieving process. You're dealing with, and as a family lawyer, I can appreciate it's hard not to be, not to have to manage it, but you've got to, because you're hearing bad news or sad news every day. When somebody talks about a relationship breakdown, they're talking about sadness, they're talking about being upset, they're talking about anger. They're speaking from lenses, through their lens, they're really hurt and in pain. And it's a difficult time. And ultimately, as a family lawyer, you can't buy into that. You've got to do the best you can for the client, absolutely understand them, and make sure that they know that you're going to do a spectacular job for them and to help them as best as you can. But sometimes you've got to really take a step back. I think that you've got to always take a step back and make sure that you're helping them rather than making it worse for them.
Yeah, I've had, again, experience of very emotional lawyers.
Start asking you questions.
I've had some interesting experiences, but similar to you. At the end of the day, that's ultimately why we're engaged. We're engaged to remove the emotion, to get the outcome that would otherwise be difficult, because, in the instance of family law, whether you're telling when you're telling your spouse, sometimes they need to hear it from someone else. And that's obviously where a big part of probably what you do comes in, where you can either speak to that lawyer in a manner in which that there's an outcome that can be achieved, rather than the two spouses going back and forward to no end.
Yeah.
And back to your point, that's why I feel family law is the most important law, because it trumps all.
Thank you. Wow, that's great. I'm
yes.
glad I'm on your podcast now, because I felt the same way. I never always did family law.
Right.
And I started my, just before uni and just after graduation, I worked in commercial litigation, and prior to that, property. And I never thought I'd work in family law, but I had a sort of I found myself doing discovery, I think, for 12 months we acted for a big organisation, and hours I would do discovery, and there was really hardly any human contact except with the other lawyers. And I just thought, this is not what I want to do. I want to do a social justice, and I thought I'd try my hand at criminal law. That failed because I couldn't stomach the first and only case that I ever sat in, which was a shaken baby case, and that was just not going to be for me. And so family law was something that I thought, okay, that's dealing with people, and I've loved it. Like it's an area of law that I've chosen. I haven't fallen into it. I've chosen it. But then to come back and practice within a big firm like Lavan, I think it's a nice balance in terms of making sure that we can actually, not just act for our clients, but also have the benefit of being surrounded with other practice areas that can assist them in their matter. Because a lot of my clients are pretty sophisticated. They've got businesses that they've really worked and invested in, and they've built. They've got big group structures that are, they've got very complex structures, which I think you need to, deep dive into as a family lawyer, as opposed to you're not just dealing with the relationship, you're dealing with business. You're dealing with understanding that this is somebody's livelihood, and the impact of a divorce on business is significant. And unfortunately, whilst my client might have financial acumen or business acumen, or, a bit sophisticated in terms of, tax implications, the other party may not be. And the other party may be very emotional about the breakup, and it causes great difficulty and great stress for all those involved when, you don't have the your other trusted advisors telling you, like accountants, tax advisors. I mean, they're the people that you need to really taper and ward off a lot of the distrust between the parties, and come to some type of financial and commercially sensible approach, so that they don't throw their legacy and the wealth that they've built for their children down the drain.
Yeah, and I think you rightly point out that it is very common and if my understanding is correct, in Australia it's almost 1 in 2 marriages would end in a divorce, and that's why I keep coming back to it. It's one of the most important pieces of legislation and legal practice areas, because not only is a statistic like that frightening, but it's the largest intergenerational wealth transfer that is even more frightening.
Yeah.
And how do you manage that, and how do you protect yourself, and how do you protect your family's legacy?
Yeah. It hasn't, that stat in terms of the 1 in 2 hasn't really changed over the years. I mean, that's been consistent since, for the past 10 years, I think,
there you go.
without looking at Australian Bureau of Statistics.
Yeah.
I might be wrong. Hope your
I
viewers
heard through COVID it got
your
worse.
viewers don't put any comments or naysays put in how wrong I was, but you said 1 in 2, so I'm just going to jump on that.
All right.
But it's going into the it's the number of people also going into second marriages.
Okay.
Yeah, second marriages or third marriages. I've had third timers, but going into those new relationships, which cause again another added layer of complexity when you're looking at the distribution of wealth with family, especially when you've got kids from a previous relationship. So you sort of front of mind, what would a separation look like again if you were to separate the second time round?
And hopefully you're better prepared the second time round, and even more prepared the third time round.
Some people just don't.
Third time lucky.
I'm not going to say it, but third time lucky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Framy, obviously I picked up earlier, you have what I believe is some strong beliefs, forgiveness, empathy. There were some traits coming through, some of the things that you were saying. And we did discuss earlier the importance of faith and your Christian beliefs in, I guess, in work and in your personal life. How do you go about bringing them in? Because, again, very challenging environment that you would be you'd be surrounded in.
It is. My faith is probably the most important part of my life. I never used to be able to say that. I grew up in a staunch Catholic family. My parents made us go to church every Sunday, and as a child you're made to go. I think in my adulthood I deviated from that a little bit. And then in the last few years I've really come back to it, and I think I've always had it. But it's been really important to me in terms of understanding how that shapes me as a person, how that shapes me in terms of my decision making, in terms of the way I deal with not just the stress, but I deal with challenges, both at home and socially and, at work. And having those Christian values, I mean, sometimes I think about it, Christian values aren't really, are not unaligned as much as people think it is with business. I mean, you hear all the time, failure leads, you need to fail before success.
In order to succeed,
succeed, yeah. And it's how you get up, right? I mean, even without a faith, even without any concept of faith behind that, it's pretty similar. I think that from my perspective as a Christian, I believe that, and suffering's a big word, but suffering can be also a challenge, or not getting your way, or things that upset you, or things that it's not going your way. So suffering leads to, from my perspective, it leads to perseverance, and perseverance itself leads to character, building character, and then character leads to hope. And and it's almost like that. I guess if I were going to juxtapose it with somebody, in terms of non-faith perspective, it is about failure, getting up, and then succeeding. And for me, my faith, and it's not for everybody, but faith is quite important for me to understand that there's just such a bigger universe than just we're really specks, right? I mean, I'm not the most important person in the room. I'm not the smartest person in the room. I'm certainly not the be-it, end-all in any situation that I'm in. And in fact, I can't control a lot of things, and there is something greater than me. And that's, my faith is very important. People have different faiths, and they should be able to rejoice in it, and also not have it contradict what they do at work. And when I come across really difficult times, I pray in my office. It's something that I wouldn't probably ordinarily share with a lot of people, but now I'm feeling a lot more comfortable in terms of saying it. It's important to me, and why not share it? Because I couldn't be my whole self if I sat here and told you that faith wasn't number one for me. And in fact, I think Arthur C. Brooks, I'm going to talk about another podcast person that I love. Arthur C. Brooks is a Harvard professor. Do you know about him?
No, I haven't come across his podcast.
Okay,
no.
so he and Jordan Peterson are besties.
Yeah, I know Jordan Peterson.
Yeah,
yes.
everybody knows Jordan Peterson. But Arthur C. Brooks is a professor at Harvard, and his classes teach about happiness.
Okay.
So bizarre, but, and anyway, he talks about these, bank accounts that you need to be depositing into.
Mm-hmm.
And he said in order to make sure that you're happy. And anyway, I'm not as articulate as him, but basically he says the 4 accounts that you need to deposit into is faith, family, friends, and work. And obviously he's American, so free trade is very important to him. And being a capitalist, work is definitely in there. And I think it resonates with me because I have worked. I work. My career and my profession is so important to me. Mm-hmm. I'm not just a mum and a partner. I'm a lawyer, and that's part of who I am, but I'm also a Christian. So what he says resonates with me because you shouldn't be afraid to fully express yourself in whatever environment you're in. And I've learned that. I never had the courage to do that when I was younger. I wish I did. As I've gotten older, I think that life, the time that you have, so valuable. Why not bring your whole self to every situation that you're in? And I think that I'm trying to do that a lot more now. It's not, well,
that's good.
Challenging.
It's amazing. Again, I think it's in this business world that we grow up in or we evolve in. Yeah. More often than not, there's other, as you probably rightly put, there's other things that I perceive to be more important. But faith can overcome that. So from that, and a question that I've been dying to ask is, have you ever been challenged about your faith? And if you have, how did you overcome that challenge? In a business sense.
In a business sense.
Yes.
I mean, I'm a divorce lawyer, firstly. That's I've had to contemplate, that area of law, especially for, what the Catholic Church says about it.
Yes, but there's forgiveness.
But there is. There's forgiveness. I see my faith more as an ally to me in business.
Okay.
I think faith would really come under the heading of what helps me get through things, or what has assisted me in getting through the challenges, rather than being a challenge itself. The only challenge that I have with my faith was me not being able to profess it, or not be able to talk about it. That was the only challenge.
And what? But why have you felt that way? I'm intrigued.
Because it's not something that's said in the it's not something that's said in everyday working life. Yeah. When somebody tells you bad news, you say, thinking about you, or, I hope everything goes well. The truth and the reality is, when somebody tells me their bad news, I pray for them, right? I do. That's what I do. And I've been doing it a lot more. And I could never say that before. In fact, sometimes I think about it because I don't want to offend people, because you don't want to offend people, and you don't want them to think, that there's an element of, she crazy, or, not that I think that people think they're crazy, but it's just not the norm. And for me, I think, well, that's not my norm, and why should I hide it? So that's the challenge I had with my faith. Like I said, I think it's, I'm getting to that point where I'm talking about it with you on a podcast.
Well, I'm gonna jump in and probably share something I haven't shared.
Okay.
There's a close friend of mine that passed away a number of years ago, and in the event that I have something go really well, I also say a prayer.
Yeah.
Because I want him to be in the same moment that I am.
Yeah.
So I think it is normal.
Yeah.
And I think it's probably just the fact that maybe people are hiding it.
And you're right, Paz. I hid it because I didn't think that it was something that firstly I didn't want to offend somebody. How I would offend them, I don't know. Now I think about it. I mean, like, you
Sounds
look back
crazy.
at what how you acted before, or what your beliefs were before, and you kind of scratch your head and say, oh, well, why did I even think that? But that's one of the moments. But for me, in terms of prayer, I mean, I'll tell you one thing. We had a Lavan is really well known for the wonderful events that we host.
That is true.
And we've got beautiful boardrooms upstairs on level 20, and we've hosted quite a few functions up there. One of the functions up there that as partners we get the benefits of wanting, attending what we want to attend, etc. On most occasions. And there was one occasion where the Southern Knights, I think they're called. It's a Catholic men's group. Came, and I don't know if you know Nick Marvin.
Yes, I do.
Yeah, okay. He's an astonishing. He was a great speaker. Anyway, he came up in the boardroom, and we set it up. It was a roundtable dinner, and it was about the Christian faith and high performance in the Christian faith. And I was really chuffed, thinking, yeah, this is my type of event, and I was going to enjoy it. And when I got up there, before we even started, the person who was organising it, from who we were hosting from that group, said grace. It was the first time that I'd ever said grace in that boardroom.
Wow!
And it wasn't the first time that I'd ever had a meal in there, and it felt really good. It felt like, wow, I can say, because usually I'd silently, say grace before I eat, and but to do it so openly, and to start off a presentation and they were pretty, there's a pretty sophisticated room full of people in there, and from the business community, and to start a function like that in our boardrooms in prayer was really special for me. Yep.
Oh, well, again, I think it is norm, and there is a lot of other traditions, let's put it that way, that are accepted in this business world that we live in. I think that is definitely one that should be probably more openly accepted. I'm with you. Coming from an Italian background, there is every Saturday it was church as we were growing up as kids, and just like you, obviously, as you grow through life, you probably don't make the time that we would have otherwise had made. But it was a tradition. It was like, go to church every Saturday night and then go and share a meal together as a family.
Lucky you, Saturday night. We had to go Sunday morning.
Oh, there you go. Ours was Saturday night, and we used to go predominantly to Chinese, believe it or not.
Oh, we did Chinese too.
Yeah, there you go.
It was a treat. I think it was just something to rope us into going to church.
That's it. Correct. It was. It was like, if you come to church, we'll take you to Chinese. I'm like, yes, we're in.
I there's a real joy in terms of believing in something so strongly, and understanding that there is, and then I guess in terms of, I mean, one of the prayers that lead me all the time, and again, it resonates with, I mean, it doesn't, you don't have to be Christian to have this mantra, and it's the Serenity Prayer. And I mean, for all intents and purposes, I bet you a Stoic philosopher came up with it. But, it's a serenity prayer where they say, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And that's what you face every day, right? You identify things that, can I change that? Whether it's, problems with the team, problems with the processes, problems with the management of the business, problems with your, colleagues, problems with your, the dispute between your clients. What can I change? What can't I change? But the real crux of it is to know the difference in terms of, sometimes, we try to change things that you just can't change. Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And it is challenging to accept, but you're right.
But I say that prayer quite frequently in my head.
Good.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Framy. I think we should normalise it, and I'm a big believer. But again, if people have different beliefs, that's where the challenge probably arises from. So I think if we were to normalise Christianity and prayers, well, then it should then only be right that we normalise other beliefs.
Absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
Lavan's got a diversity and equity and inclusion committee, and we celebrate different religious festivals,
Awesome.
and I love it. Like it's very important. Again, faith is not just about, you know, a Roman Catholic faith or Christianity. People have different faiths. We've got to accept that. And if it makes you, or you know, what if you, as a result, if it makes you want to be a better person, a better partner, better spouse, better mother, better parent, better boss, better leader, why not? We should be encouraging it.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
All right.
Well, let's normalise it, Framy. You've had a fantastic career. You're a resilient young woman that has travelled from Sydney to Perth. Depends where you call it home. I probably wouldn't want to be one of your kids having to argue with mum as a lawyer.
They do.
I feel like
do.
that would be an uphill battle. But maybe once they get to their teens, I reckon they'd probably have a couple
They're all adults.
Yeah, okay,
My,
there
my
you go.
daughter's a teacher. She's well and truly into it. They're well and truly into their 20s.
Amazing. Well, that's fantastic to hear, Framy. So, where can people find you? Obviously, you know, whether they want a prenuptial agreement or are finding themselves in a bit of a pickle, where are you best found?
At Lavan.
At Lavan, okay.
In my office.
In your office, where
on
you
a
are.
Teams conference
Okay.
or at Churchill's.
Okay.
Once a month.
Once a month. Good. Okay. Well, it's been great to have you on board.
Thanks so much, Paz.
It's been very enlightening and insightful, and I feel like you've got a lot more to give. And
thanks, Paz. So do you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I hope to continue to build a relationship and rapport with yourself and the team at Lavan.
No, I can't wait. And thank you so much for having me on your show. You got a few followers.
We're getting there, slowly
Yeah.
but surely.
Yeah.
Rome wasn't built in a day.
No, it wasn't. Definitely not.
But thank you
when
so
in Rome.
much. Yeah, but thank you so much for your kind words, and it's been awesome. And if anyone does want to find you, I will probably put a link in on LinkedIn for your profile, and they can add you, or they can comment on the video with their beliefs on family.
Oh, thanks so much, Paz.
You're welcome. Thank you.